All right, welcome back, everyone. Today I have with me Gabe Lord, Army veteran, Bitcoin veteran, uh, kind of doing a lot of other things that I would do him an injustice by trying to describe right now. As I looked up your LinkedIn, all the different projects you got going on, and one of the biggest things that has helped me and reason I want to talk to you is all that you're doing for the veteran community. I think it's amazing, and for the kind of help orange pill, so to speak, uh, people into the Bitcoin community. So, Gabe, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man. It is awesome to be here.
Hey, Gabe, well, you've really motivated me as I started to transition, and I'm in the process of transitioning out of the Army now. I'll be starting my skills bridge here shortly through it's like a program called Onward to Opportunity, where you get an opportunity to do your certification,
Hmm.
and I'm going to be pursuing human resources certification as I leave Human Resources Command (HRC) for Knox, and I was able to find you through Twitter, through Orange Pill app, and a couple other resources. Listen to Bitcoin Veterans podcast, and someone like you has really helped me during my transition, kind of take the bull by the horn, so to speak, and start to pursue my own interests, my passions. And so I want to thank you for that right off the bat. Um, Gabe, can you just give me a little background about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Sure, yeah. Thank you for having me on today. And also, I just want to say, I mean, it sounds to me like you're really taking the initiative on your own transition out of the military. So it's own that, man, because you're the one who's making it happen ultimately. But I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be a resource in any way that I possibly can. Yeah, I'm a part of a community called Bitcoin Veterans. We kicked things off really as a group last year. My own Bitcoin journey is relatively new compared to a lot of folks I think out there in the space. It was late in 2022, I believe, when I really started digging into it. I was actually orange pilled by my father, who's he's a crusty old Vietnam veteran. He two combat deployments to Vietnam way back in the day, and he came across Jeff Booth, The Price of Tomorrow, and
Mhm.
just started tumbling down the rabbit hole. And then he grabbed a hold of me and brought me with him. And so it was as soon as the light came on, it just made perfect sense to me. I was in the Army from 2003 to 2012, and from the time that I got out up until the present, I've been involved in different support programs to kind of offer a hand to veterans who are on their way out of the military, bring them into the civilian world in a way that was going to set them up for success. And this looks like individual coaching, building out veteran talent programs within different organizations, and a couple of other different ways. And something that I experienced during that time was there hasn't really been the level of success in providing support to people on their way out of the military that has ever been satisfactory, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
They're just too many pitfalls that are in place, and the support structure isn't there. The VA, they're not doing a good job at all. Anybody will let you know that. And there are a lot of vultures out there that take advantage of service members on their way out. The same as when we're in. So there's not a lot of difference there. But despite all of my best efforts to support service members on their way out, it always felt like there was something missing. There's just, you feel like things are going okay. And then, working with a guy, getting him through, helping him find work, getting his family situated. And then, he'll go dark on you. And then you hear a couple weeks later, he took his own life. And you're just like, what the hell? What did we miss?
Yeah.
What could we have done differently? And that's what everybody asks. What could we have done? How could we let this get past us? And I didn't really recognize the nature of the biggest issue, and that biggest issue was the loss of a sense of being connected to a community, especially a community of other people that are tied to a purpose, people that are on a mission, people that are doing something that's relevant, because that's something that a lot of us experience when we leave the military is, okay, well, now what? Okay, well, I was doing something that was important. I mean, the military, with all of its shortcomings and downfalls and agendas and all those, the politics and all that we can, we all know that it's there. But, taking all those into consideration, still, when we're in the military, we're a part of something. We're connected to something, and there's a sense of camaraderie and shared mission and purpose. And when we get out, there's nothing that compares to that in the civilian world. And I don't want to bring you down or anything, but it's just,
Yeah.
that's just how it is. Okay. And I experienced it myself. My buddies getting out experienced it. And there's just this sense of disconnect and ultimately this nihilism that can set in. And a lot of people just basically spiral out and bad things happen. Some pull out, some don't, some make it, some struggle. It's just, but it didn't really hit me until I discovered Bitcoin, and then really discovered the community that is around that. It's when I found it, I started thinking, okay, this is about money. This is cool. This is great. And then I realized, okay, this is more than that. This is about freedom. And then I said, wait a minute, this is something that veterans can be plugged into, because this is a freaking mission. This is important. And I started going all over LinkedIn and looking for people that had, the word Bitcoin in their profile, that had served in any capacity of the military or were serving now. And to my surprise, I found that there were a number of people with military experience that were already they're already involved in the Bitcoin community. So I just started sending out blind invitations, just, sending them out. Hey, what's going on? I'm a veteran. I'm kind of new to Bitcoin. I want to learn about this. You're a veteran. Let's talk. And people started responding to me. And I was like, this is friggin' beautiful, man. I love it.
Yeah.
One of the first people to respond was Alex Stanzik. And Alex is a Navy veteran, and he's heavily involved in the Bitcoin space. And we started talking, and he made himself available. He shared his time with me. He was very generous with making himself available. We had a few conversations, and then shortly after that, I found myself in Miami. It all happens like a whirlwind. I found myself in Miami last year at the Bitcoin conference down there, and then met Alex in person. Met Shane Hazel in person, and turns out that they had already been talking about, doing something with veterans and doing something with Bitcoin. And I was like, let's go, man. I'm in. Let's roll.
For
A couple
sure.
months later, we kick off a podcast, Bitcoin Veterans. They had already started up a Twitter chat group, and it was maxed out to full capacity. So we migrated the conversation somewhere else, kicked off the Bitcoin Veterans podcast last year. Actually, we're just about at 1 year in, and just been going from there, and ended up starting up a nonprofit as well, called Operation Bitcoin. Operation Bitcoin is we educate veterans on basically we use the Me Premier Bitcoin diploma program, and we deliver that to military veterans, and then also connect veterans with jobs in the Bitcoin industry. And we're working on a couple other things that are emerging. But that was kind of the long story of the short story. But that's the summary of it, and what brought me to where we are today, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's great. And the cool part about that is, when you're linking up with these veterans, and kind of the eagerness, especially when I talk Bitcoin, to connect, as we leave the service, you do have that, that disconnect that you had. You had a group of peers, you had that safety net, you had a like culture. I like to joke, we all had the same haircuts. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of all generally had the same belief system. I mean, there are obviously differences, but freedom, values. And when you bring Bitcoin into this, and if you haven't really studied Bitcoin, if you only think about it as number go up, or we're just in it for money, you probably don't understand Bitcoin enough to see what we're talking about. I mean, it really is focusing on freedom, decentralization. Even as veterans we've deployed, we've been to Iraq, we've been to Afghanistan, we've been, parts unknown. You would think that we'd be the last ones to want something like this, but in fact, we've seen it firsthand, right? You've seen unbanked firsthand. You've seen, like, I think I've read Check Your Financial Privilege. And Alex Gladstein talks about, with people have no means to save. If any aid comes their way, it's confiscated by their warlords or local government. And we've seen that firsthand. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, if for those of us that have been downrange, and I mean, at this stage of the game, I mean, if you've been in the military for more than a minute, you've probably deployed. But yeah, I mean, we've seen it. I mean, I went to Iraq in what was it, '05, and it was, it's different. And someone who
Mm-hmm.
hasn't experienced it, they're just not gonna, you can see it in movies, but when you meet people that live there, and that's every day, that's their entire life for them, and they don't exist in the same world that we do out here in the West. It's just not how it is. And I've been to some other places as well, and it to varying degrees, you're going to find it's a different world, it's a different mindset, and there's just not that sense of entitlement and security that we happen to experience here in the U.S. Most people here, most know that they're probably going to be okay. They're going to get a meal.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they don't have a job, if they're unemployed, they know somebody's going to go ahead and swoop up and give them what they need, whether it's, welfare or assistance or whatever it looks like. They're going to be okay. If they want to, fill out the forms and do the process and do all that stuff, you're going to be taken care of. But there are many, many places in the rest of the world where that is just not the case. And if they don't find a way to make things happen, they're not going to survive, and their families aren't going to survive. And that's not even taken into account the people that are going to do them harm through violence. That's just a matter of finding your basic subsistence to survive throughout the day. And that's the case for many of them out there, and I learned pretty quickly. The first time I met some foreign nationals or the first time I met some local nationals in Iraq, I was stationed near a city called Tikrit, and met some guys there were some local dudes, and they were hanging out in our area, doing some things. I'm not going to get into it, but
Yeah, of course.
they, I asked them, maybe, so what do you think about, us being here? What do you think about, the war? What do you think about Saddam and this and that? And they didn't care. They didn't care about any of that crap. They didn't care about the campaigns. They didn't care about the politics. They cared about being able to earn enough of what they needed to go home and feed their families that night. And that's what they wanted. They
Yeah.
didn't want people to mess with them. They didn't hate Americans. And the reality is, many of the ones that were committing violent acts against Americans were doing so under coercion, or just they absolutely had no other option. They had to do it
Mm-hmm.
for a number of different reasons. But they weren't these diehard anti-American people that just wanted to destroy America. They just wanted to make it through the day, and they were doing exactly what they had to do to make that happen. We're not experiencing that here in America, and so there's a different reception, I think, when it comes to the entire concept of decentralization, of Bitcoin in general, and of freedom to express yourself through your transactions. That we just don't recognize the value of that here as Americans, I think, by and large, for now. But in places like that, in places like the global South, in places like Central America and in Africa and in other places that have already experienced a total destruction of their economy, man, they're seeing the value of it. They
Mm-hmm.
recognize the value of it because they don't have any other money. And this is the one true form of money. I'm not even going to say the best form of money that they've experienced, but it is money. We had Breed Love was on the podcast a few weeks ago, and his position is that this is the first true money that the world has actually ever seen. And it's fascinating to me that there are other parts in the world that are experiencing it and that are receiving the benefit of it before we do here. It's almost like it's like a trickle up sort of benefit and transformation.
Yeah. No, definitely. I had Brian DeMint. I talked to him few days ago, a week ago, and we were talking that piece, like the parallel economy, how to, and just like looking at where does he see that springing up? And he mentioned Canada is right now kind of a big area, obviously El Salvador and a few others. But if for us in the United States, right, it, there's a lot of pushback, right? I mean, because they're not just going to lose the control of the money, which is kind of driving almost all the decisions and all the policies. And so it's going to be an interesting dynamic as we go forward here.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, you have people that have so much to lose.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're going to fight this, and it's not just your average, Starbucks sipping, Target shopping American, or Walmart, or wherever you get your stuff. It's more than that. Okay, we have people that are in positions of power that have built their lives and their wealth, their generational wealth on the existing fiat system that is in place right now, and they don't want to give that up. I mean, if I was in their position, I probably wouldn't want to give it up either.
Right.
But you can't really fight against something that is as powerful as the truth. And the truth can't be turned into something that it's not, because it is the most pure thing that exists. And that is what we are facing right now, is an absolute truth that is emerging and making itself known. And it can't be stopped ultimately, but people are going to fight against it. And it's one of those things that I believe that, much as I'll go back to the to the concept of the truth. It exists and it can't be changed, and in the end it's already won. But the battles still need to be fought. There are many, many battles that still need people to step up and to take the initiative and take the lead and move forward and take action in fighting those battles. And I'm not talking about violence. I mean, we all know Bitcoin is a peaceful revolution, and that is what we want, especially as a group of veterans who have seen combat before. We don't want anything bad to happen to people. We don't want people to get hurt. We believe that people are going to get financially hurt. We believe that people are going to lose their fiat-based wealth that is built on a corrupt system, and they'll be required to pick up the pieces and move forward the way that they best see fit. But at the same time, we don't want physical violence. That's not why we're here. That's not good for anybody. We've seen it. We know the result, and it's just not good. It just leads to more of it. That's not the purpose, and that's not the point. But we know that this is changing the world, and we know that it can't be stopped.
Yeah, no, you're right, and there's no calls for violence. For those of us like yourself, we've seen that firsthand. So when we hear, Ukraine, they've only lost X number thousands of people, like it blows my mind that it's like a hand wave when they talk about casualties lost. And we've been fortunate. I mean, we've last Iraq, Afghanistan, we lost roughly 5, 6. Or that doesn't count injured and whatnot. But every single person you see, that's a family member, that's a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, someone's child. And so it does try to kind of annoy me when you hear the hand waves of, oh, it's only 15,000, it's only 30,000. And so you're right, like none of us or nobody is calling for any kind of violence. And I think that the cool part about this, and what Brian mentioned, was this parallel economy kind of already has a head start. So once things crash and we look at the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars we're in debt, there's already something that's already started, as opposed to trying to create something on the fly.
Yeah. And so
good.
I was just going to say, and so much of it is based on community. And Brian DeMint that man is brilliant. I tell you what, and it's so much of the parallel economy. And I'm not going to, try to, pretend like I understand his concepts as well as he does, but so much of it is based on community. And that's how these parallel economies are able to thrive. Obviously it's about the people. And so the communities that are built, that's where we're seeing the most success in the adoption rate of Bitcoin is in places and in cultural areas that are able to build community around it and then drive those things forward. That's how humans are successful. Okay, we're not going to have a person, do something and then drive it forward on their own and then have it be a lasting change. It's not what it's about, because it takes community effort. It takes the energy of an entire tribe of individuals to push things forward. And of course, while they're doing that, they're not just isolated to their own little circle and their own little tribe. Everyone has overlap, and everyone has extension, and everyone has creep into these other tribes that then are all kind of connected by these tendrils that can sort of progress and move each other forward at the same time. It's a fascinating concept, man. And he is one of those, he's one of the most brilliant people out there. It's an awesome book.
Yeah. So can you tell me about your program, the education program you're doing through Me Premier Bitcoin, and kind of the whole program, what it's all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me see. So my background, after leaving the military, well, let me back up just a little bit. While I was getting close to the tail end of my time in service, I decided I wanted to train soldiers full time. And so I requested to be sent to the Total Army Training Program and to just be a trainer forever. It's something that I found that I had a passion for. As soon as I became an NCO, when I became a corporal, and then when I became a sergeant, sergeants are responsible for training the soldiers. I mean, that's like our primary mission is to train the force. And so I was really fortunate and blessed to have some amazing soldiers that I was able to train up and to bring them to places where they could serve at their peak, and they could get promoted, and then they could in turn train other soldiers. And it was awesome. It was so cool. And so I wanted to do that full time. I went to the training school and, got certified, did all that stuff. And I was waiting for my orders. I was going to go train soldiers all the time, train. And they said, no, you're not going to go train people. You're going to be a recruiter instead. And I was like, oh, hell no, that is not going to happen. And they said, yeah, USAREC, U.S. Army Recruiting Command. They basically they call the shots. Especially, we were actively, engaged in a lot of combat in a lot of areas. And so they needed, people to keep joining. So I went and I did that for a few years, and I found a way to keep training soldiers. I boosted up the future soldier training program, and I was training the recruiters that we had in the house, teaching them not to be dirtbags and lie to everybody so they could recruit people honestly, which was a pretty significant challenge. But I don't need to tell you. I mean, most recruiters are full of it. But we were able to turn the station around a little bit while I was there. I can't speak for them now. But anyway, fell in love with training. By the time I got out of the Army, I went on and I continued training as a civilian, talent acquisition, talent management, things like that. And ended up getting a grad degree in human resource development, which is basically training people. And so training, coaching people, it's something that passion has never left me. And so when I began to really study Bitcoin and get into it and ask myself, okay, what can I do with this now? Which is something that I've learned that just about everybody who studies it, they get to a point and they say, all right, well, I've got this knowledge, and I've this thing has been revealed to me, and it's important and it matters. What do I do with it now? And so then that's where we are required to kind of look at ourselves in a kit and say, okay, well, what do I bring to the table? What can I do? And it's interesting. A little side note is that I have this conversation with a lot of people, and they say, well, I'll never fully understand the technical side of things. I'm not that much of, an economics person. I don't understand money that much. I know it's important, but that's the thing, is there's a place for everybody. There's room for everyone to do something. Once they realize the truth, and once their eyes are open, and once that orange pill has been digested and the light comes on, there's something for everybody, and we need everyone's talents. And it just so happened that mine is education. Mine is training people. And so I began to reach out to people and ask them, look, I want to teach people about this. I don't know everything about it, and I never will, but I want to start sharing it and teach people what I know, and I want to use my skills. And so a couple of guys, other veterans, Wade and Scott, they got me connected with Me Premier Bitcoin. They're a nonprofit. They're based down in El Salvador. A lot of people have heard of them. They're pretty big. they've been growing, and they have a really awesome mission where they started in El Salvador, just delivering a Bitcoin diploma program to the school kids down there. And we all know El Salvador is it's
Hmm.
basically that's Bitcoin country down there. And they started out with the kids, and they're moving into other areas. They have, they're working with the Ministry of Education now. They have a business education program, all this cool stuff. And so, yeah, so I got on board with them. I got a hold of them, got connected, started having conversations. Had already come up with the concept of Operation Bitcoin, um, and decided that I would partner up with them. And they accepted an application to become a light node, which is they have different nodes around the world, and we became a light node in October of 23. And our mission, Operation Bitcoin, is to introduce, educate, equip, and motivate military veterans to help lead the world into the Bitcoin future. And so, again, we start out with the introduction part. We want to go out and reach as many veterans as we possibly can. We want to reach as many service members currently on active duty as we possibly can. We want to introduce them to Bitcoin, because for so many people, they may have heard of it here and there, but they haven't truly been introduced to what it actually is. We all know there's a lot of bad information out there. There's a lot of FUD, we call it. There's a lot of lies, a lot of misinformation, not to use an overused word. But our part of our mission is to introduce them to what it actually is. And we do that by, we have in-person sessions. We're launching some online sessions here in June. But part of what we do is we just start out with the conversation of, okay, what's money? And we start from the basics. We go back to, rye stones and shells and beads and all this other stuff. And we bring them to a place. So we introduce them to it. And then we really begin the education. That's where we deliver the Bitcoin diploma program, which is, again, it's an open source program offered by My First Bitcoin, Me Premier Bitcoin. And it's available online on their GitHub. Anybody can access it. Anybody can get it. It's an amazing program, and they break it down in a way that is just it's crystal clear and easy to understand, and it provides an excellent foundation for anybody who wants to learn about it. And so yeah, we provide the education, and then there was a moment in time where we realized that it's a little bit different to educate veterans with something like Bitcoin than it is to educate kids in school. Okay. Because with veterans and with service members, there's okay, now what sort of element,
Hmm.
right? I mean, we can sit down and we can take you through the Bitcoin diploma and teach you all about money and teach you all about blockchain and Bitcoin and how to transact and how to set up wallets and how to move your coins into cold storage. And we can do all that stuff. But we've really quickly realized that, there's a question afterward. Okay, I got this stuff. I know what to do. And it's like I was talking about earlier. Now what? Okay, I want to get
Right.
involved in this thing. I want to get engaged. And the first thing that most of them ask me is, hey, man, is anybody hiring in Bitcoin? I want to get a job doing this stuff, man. This is cool.
Yeah.
And so that's the next part, is connecting veterans with jobs in the Bitcoin industry. This part is still in its infancy. So we're still building this out, and we're still establishing these relationships and these connections. One of the ways that we're doing this is we have an application pending with the SkillBridge program, which you're familiar with,
Yeah.
which is for those that aren't, who are with us today. It's basically it's an internship program through the Department of Defense that they'll place you with an organization that is a part of it, and they can go through basically a proxy organization, which is what we would be. So they can kind of go through us as a third party, and we can put them with an organization that we have a partnership with, and place them there for up to 6 months. There's no cost to the organization. They're still active duty, and still the service member that's performing the internship, they still get their full pay. They still get their full benefits and all that other cool stuff. But instead of going to work and doing military stuff, they go to work with the Bitcoin company, and they do Bitcoin company stuff. So yeah, we're waiting for that application to be cleared. There are no other companies that are in the Bitcoin industry that have an approved MOU with the SkillBridge program to this date. So I'm sure that some are starting to look at it. I'm spreading the word, and I'm trying to tell as many as I can to get their applications in, because this isn't, it's not a competition thing to me. It's about, let's create opportunities for our service members who are coming out. So yeah, that's a big part of what we have going on. We have a couple other phases, but we're not, of course, we can't roll everything out at the same time. So we're still building. We are a nonprofit organization registered in the United States of America. We have a 501c3 application that is pending approval. Anticipated by mid-June is what the IRS is telling us. So let's hang on and hope that works out, because they're an interesting organization to work with. And
I can imagine.
I don't want to get us in trouble, but I think the word Bitcoin scares them when they see that in applications for 501c3 status. So we've been required to do a little bit of extra explaining on things, and they've sent us a couple of additional requests for information, which is fine. We went into it expecting that there'd be hoops to jump through, but yeah, that's ultimately where we are. I think that our biggest accomplishment to date is I'm down in the state of Georgia, and there's a training facility here that is it's a state-run veteran training facility, and they approved us recently to begin delivering our Bitcoin education program within their facility. We had our inaugural session in May of this year. It was about, I guess we're at the end of May now, and they just they basically said, okay, you can come in and you can do this thing, and we want to see how it's going to go, and make sure that you're not, like a bunch of veterans aren't going to walk out of this thing like, ready to do something crazy. And we want to get some feedback from them and so forth. And so we we had the first session, collected the feedback. The positive was fantastic. Everyone that shared the feedback said, yes, I would recommend this to my friends. We need to get more veterans involved with this, and so forth and so on. And so then the training center, they reviewed the feedback, and they invited us to come back. And so we're plugged into their regular recurring schedule starting in July. And so yeah, man, it's taken off.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. And I'm not going to say it was something of a Trojan horse effort, but I am going to say that we did go in there with a very tactful approach, and we're approaching it very strategically as we move forward. And yeah, so we're pretty excited about that it's taken off, because but when things are moving here within an organization, within a facility like that, then we can begin to design plans to replicate it in other states as well.
For sure. Yeah, and having that state buy-in obviously adds more credibility to it, right? It's not just, you're not just doing something on your own, like, kind of joke about in the podcast in my basement. Although, but now you have a state building, you can do training, adds credibility. You've already got the Me Premier Bitcoin that's backing you through the program itself, and now that you have the state, you can kind of grow from there. How do people find whether it is the in-person or the online class? Where can the people go to sign up?
Yeah, it's best to connect with us on our website, operationbitcoin.io. We have a little form on there. Just punch it in. Tell us what you're interested in. There are some options. You can you can select that you're interested in Bitcoin classes. You can select that you're interested in getting connected with Bitcoin jobs, or you can select that you're interested in building a Bitcoin business. That's one of our next phases. So that's kind of a sneak preview. Is we're also realizing that that the Bitcoin industry is there's a lot more interest in jobs than there are actual companies that are hiring. And so we've run into that issue. There's a talent surplus that's coming from military veterans that are entering into the space. And so we said, well, why don't we help those veterans that want to build their own company, and maybe they can create some jobs while they're at it too. And so it's like, how it goes. I mean, you get some veterans that are interested in something, and it's like, oh, Well, this doesn't exist. Okay, well, let's make it exist. And
Right.
so that's what we're doing. I mean, you're a builder yourself. I mean, you're doing it. You've
Yeah.
taken the reins and you're making it happen. And so you're a perfect example of exactly why we decided to offer that kind of support to others that want to build businesses in the Bitcoin space.
No, I appreciate that. And, it's kind of, I spent my career and, you've been around it, as a medical service officer. So what you might call the medical ops guy in a battalion, an infantry battalion or whatever. And so you come up, and if you don't like make your way to the table, so to speak, if you don't force yourself to the table, you can get left behind and
Mm-hmm.
ignored, right? And so I think a lot of veterans who've kind of grew up that way, okay, there's not a path. How do we make a path? What do we do to create our own way? Well, really, when you brought up everything, talk about the Skills Bridge program and transitioning, one of the reasons I'm doing this show and kind of started my own business kind of thing was when I was in those transition classes, it's called TAP, right? The transition classes, I had everyone who was a first year private who's separating to a 30-year colonel,
Mm-hmm.
sergeant major, and then maybe a few handful of people in there who are being medically retired unexpectedly, right? And we were all getting the same classes, basic generic classes, because it's a coverall, right? So it's great for a lot of people, but there's some things that don't apply to everyone.
Yeah.
And when I looked at the finances, when I looked at jobs across the room, it was kind of like, oh crap, like what do I do now? And so in my resume as a let's say infantry officer for 30 years or as a sergeant major for 30 years, how do I translate that to something I'm interested in? And when I was looking at Bitcoin jobs, well, I felt I had the leadership experience that could probably be like a good operations officer, right, or something within that realm. The technical aspects, I don't think I had, and then I also just trying to translate what the heck the resume was asking, or not the resume, what the job description even meant, because
Mm-hmm.
there's a different terminology, right, from the military to civilian side. And then when I was looking for, hey, is there opportunities to internship through Skills Bridge? I couldn't really find any, but I could find like First Command Financial or other financial institutes that I could learn the fiat investing and then trying to like manage people's careers. So
Mm-hmm.
the thought that you guys are in the process of building this for the Skills Bridge, I think it's going to have a lot of demand. I mean, have you heard from people transitioning out who are this is something they really want?
Yeah, yeah, some, yeah, on LinkedIn especially. And again, I know a lot of people they call it the boomer network and things like that. But the military installations, and you know this, they're telling service members during the TAP program, you need to get on LinkedIn and you need to create a profile, and here's what you do, and you need to do a good
Mhm.
picture and put your experience and kind of civilianize your language and all that stuff. So I mean, service members are on there, they're looking for jobs on there. And so
Yeah.
that's why I engage so heavily on there. But yeah, there is, first of all, the support that is provided to write a resume and to translate your military experience into something that civilians are going to understand is tremendously challenging. And TAP is, they're just not all that successful at it, unfortunately. And it's like you said, it's a catch-all, check the box sort of thing. I mean, really, the reality is, when we're entering the military, it's a multi-month process at least. Okay. And for some people, it's even longer. And I mean, they go in and, you completely get yanked out of your reality and put into something else. And you essentially get transformed into a different person. Um, and it takes a long, long time. But eventually, you wake up and you get up one morning, you look around, you're like, okay, I'm actually a soldier today. I'm actually an airman or a sailor or Marine or whatever. And it's like that's just part of your identity. But on the way out, it's not like that at all. It's like, go sit down in this room with a whole bunch of other people that do a whole bunch of different damn things that you don't know. Fill out these forms, go through these little sessions and these scenarios, and watch these videos. Here you go. We'll have a job fair, meet these employers, now get on out, enjoy being a civilian. What the hell is that? Okay. I mean, it doesn't work that way. You can't just like flip a switch and turn off the military and then there you go, you're a civilian. And that's why so many struggle when they're getting out, because they're like, I don't know what to do. And I'm not sure how to ask or who to ask for
Yeah.
support on this thing, because I feel like, I should be competent, because, when we're active duty, you feel like it's like, yeah, I got my stuff together, man. I'm pretty good at this.
Hmm.
But then when you get out, you're like, oh crap, I'm not used to this feeling of not being effective at things.
Hmm.
And what do I do with this now? And so that's where so many of us struggle, myself included. I mean, I had a hell of a time when I got at it. It was difficult, but anyway, I say all that to say that yes, I believe that I don't believe, but I've been receiving messages more and more from people on LinkedIn, connecting with active duty service members who are asking me about this, who want to get involved, who want to do their internship through the Skill Bridge program. Something else that I want to highlight, and this is for any businesses or service members or anybody really, is there's also the Army Career Skills Program, CSP, which is it's not as intensive to be approved for a program like CSP, which is essentially the same thing. Only it takes place at specific military installations, around specific installations, and not as much on the overall DoD level, and it's Army specific. So that is another area that we're looking at, especially in geographical areas that have a lot of mining that is taking place, because we are seeing that there is there's a fairly seamless transition for a lot of the more technical jobs in the military, specifically the Army, that can transition into these mining facilities as well. And so that's a target area for us right now. And we actually happen to have a good amount of mining in Georgia. And then when you look at places like Texas, we've got a lot of Army installations out there that we believe we have a fit for as well. But yeah, a big part of it is going to be just spreading the word to service members, and that's one of the purposes behind our online programs that we're going to be offering. Is we'll be advertising those heavily on LinkedIn. And we'll be pushing those out specifically to groups of military individuals who are approaching transition, and then getting them involved in that, so we can start building up that funnel and creating that on ramp for them to go straight out of the military into these Bitcoin companies. And I do want to say we're seeing a positive shift in some of the larger Bitcoin companies that are publicly announcing that they want to hire military veterans, that I'm in communication with, and they're telling me, yeah, we want these guys. Point us in the right direction, get us going, and let's make these connections happen. So things are moving in the right direction.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I can imagine that as these companies are seeing more and more veterans with the work ethic, the commitment, plus them coming in this way after already having a career in the military, that they're doing it not necessarily like a paycheck's always great, right? But they're doing it because it's something they're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
Because they could get a job anywhere just to have a paycheck. But for them to pursue a Bitcoin job, it's passion. And I think with that, just a lot of like our service, right? Your performance. Who I was talking to someone online was like, you would leave a 40-hour a week job to go work 80 hours a week and love it because it's your passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And is that what you're seeing, that kind of feedback?
Yeah, it is. And it's an interesting point that you bring up, because, and this is part of the importance of why this is part of why we take this so seriously. Right now, there's a steady flow of military talent from active duty into places like the defense industry, military industrial complex, because it's just kind of a natural, seamless fit, because they're plugged in, because they're already doing business with them, because they are very heavily ingrained in the transition process already. And you're going to find them at all the career fairs. They've got the best displays. They go out and they recruit the best people straight out of the military. And so what happens when we position Bitcoin companies in a way that makes them the most attractive employers coming out of the military, instead of feeding all of our best talent into the military industrial complex? there's a huge shift that we begin to see, because the success of any organization is entirely dependent on the quality of the talent that is entering into their doors. And that's proven, that's a given. Okay. You get the best people, you're going to have the best results. And that's just all there is to it. I tend to believe, and the data will back up the fact, that military talent is high quality talent, and that when these people join organizations, the organizations improve. Bitcoin companies are on the beginning curve of beginning to identify that this is a fact for them as well. I know of one large Bitcoin employer right now that has hired four veterans that I'm friends with over the past couple of months, and they're quickly realizing that, okay, these are people that are here to get stuff done, and so they are actively going out and seeking more veterans to hire, because they're recognizing that it's happening. And when you have companies that have the perspective that Bitcoin companies have right now, where there's a hard charge to make things happen because the momentum is here and it's building, and we know that we're winning. They have that perspective, and they understand that it's important to set the tone, and for them to send out the message right now in the beginning that they're the ones that want this talent, because you know as well as anybody in the military community, word spreads fast. Okay. And if you've got Joe over here and he's transitioning and he's like being courted by all these Bitcoin companies, and then you're telling, everybody that that's still active duty, yeah, man, Bitcoin companies love me. They love veterans. They love us. They're hiring us like crazy. Man, that word spreads quickly. And then that company is the one that's going to win. They're going to position themselves to be the recipient of the best talent that's out there. And we're going to go knocking on their door. And that's the way that it should be. And those are the ones that are going to make things happen.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah. When I thought about getting out earlier in my career, one of the things that kind of kept me in was, this is before Bitcoin, right? Before I started learning more about the economy, finances, Bitcoin, all that stuff. But it was like, I felt part of something bigger than myself being in the military. The selfless service, and that's something, you're doing something for the betterment of this country, is kind of what I felt. I could imagine training that in to be, a manager at, I don't want to name a company, but just any regular, Verizon, for example, right? I'm a store manager at Verizon. Cool. But for me, after what I had done, I had a hard time, like, well, what passion do I have for that? Whereas with Bitcoin, I think the companies that are hiring, the companies you could work for, are working toward a greater good. And you're at the beginning, we always say we're still early. We're so early. We're at the beginning of that growth that's occurring. And so I think that's exciting. And I tell you, I envision that this is something that a lot of service members who will definitely gravitate toward once it's well known and advertised for them as they go through Skills Bridge, or even if it might be things that people leave the service for anyhow at the end of their 4 years, 8 years, whatever it is. Doesn't have to be a retiring, service member. I could see them definitely gravitating toward everything you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're absolutely right, man. And it's that's a big part of it. It seems like there are so many people right now that are in the military that they just don't feel like there's any other option in life, and a lot of us join because it's like, well, man, I don't really have anything else to do, and I have no other options, and so they're going to go because of the security, because they know that they're going to get to go to school and it's going to be paid for, because they know they're not going to have to worry about having a place to live or a paycheck and all that, and they're going to be good. And if they do the full 20, they're set for life. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. I mean, everybody has their motivations for joining. I mean, nobody's, joining, just to sit there and do it for free. So there's definitely there can be a benefit to that. But there comes a point, I think, especially, we've seen this over the past several years, that people are running into moral conflict when it comes time for them to consider, re-enlisting or getting out. And many times it's the stability that is going to win out in their decision-making process. And you can't fault anybody for that. Okay. I mean, we have families. Okay. We have people that depend on us. We're part of something and we're contributing to something. And it's a scary thing to get out. And I felt it. I mean, when I got out at 9 years, I was just under 9 years. And you know how it is. I mean, if you're in for 10 years, you may as well just stay in and
Yeah.
just ride it out. So I was at that moment and I was like, okay, what's it going to be? And I had to weigh out the moral issues there and break out the scale and say, okay, I mean, what am I really prepared to continue to be a part of? And for me, the decision just made itself. And I said,
Mhm.
okay, I got to go. And so I went, and man, it was terrifying. And so I feel it. And I remember it very clearly. And I know that that's what a lot of our brothers and sisters experience as well. But I can tell you that when I got out, if if I had been where I am now and known what I know now about Bitcoin and had studied it and positioned myself the way that I have now, the decision making process would have been much different. And I believe that's something that we can give to active duty service members, is that gift of knowledge and that gift of establishing for themselves different paths that they have more of a control over, and give them more options than being required to stay in a situation that maybe they don't entirely have moral alignment with, and giving them that freedom to choose. Now, people that choose to stay in for 20, 30 years, that's great. Okay. I encourage people, I still encourage every military member to learn about Bitcoin and to educate each other about Bitcoin and to know about it while they're inside the military, because I believe that it can have influence over people's moral decision making process and move that up the ranks into the highest ranks. And people can make decisions based on different. I shouldn't say different, but on clearer moral objectives. But because the reality is, I mean, we need a military. Okay, even if we stopped intervening all over the world and we're going to defend our own country and that was going to be our focus, we still need it. Okay,
Mhm.
we need people that are going to fight. We need warriors, and that's just the bottom line. As a society without warriors is not going to be a society for very long. But to be able to bring that gift of knowledge and truth to members of our military, I think is something that is going to be transformative, and that's our goal.
Awesome. Well, Gabe, we've been talking for nearly an hour and went by. I could probably talk to you for another couple hours. I mean, really enjoyed this conversation. As we wrap up, is there any way, where do you recommend people reach out and contact you if they want to volunteer or if they, anything they want to do to get involved with the Bitcoin veterans?
Awesome. Yeah, check out our website, operationbitcoin.io. That's got more information on there. There's a form on there. Again, you could submit if you're interested in services. If you are, my email address is on there. If you want to shoot me a message, we need people to get involved. Okay, this is something that requires a lot of hands. We have a very bold vision. Our mission is clear and it's laid out before us, and we need warriors to get on board with us. Also, I recommend everybody follow Bitcoin Veterans. Get on Twitter, Bitcoin Veterans. It's easy to find, or on that website, bitcoinveterans.org. Also, we're on our website. You'll see all our social media channels and all that cool stuff. So find me on LinkedIn. Let's get connected. Let's talk. I've met some of the most amazing people on this journey. And yeah, it's not going to stop anytime soon. So yeah, we're always welcoming support. We do have a donation page set up. It's on our website as well as a geyser fund. So if anybody would like to contribute through Lightning, please do. But yeah, I mean, thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk, to share our message, to get to know you a little bit better, and to hear about your journey. I think that what you're doing is awesome, and I appreciate you bringing me here today.
All right. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.